Myself and Aman are going to give a presentation on hybrid cloud challenges for business critical system. We are going to talk about both business critical and mission critical, but just for a title, it's a business critical system. But before we get started, quick question for the audience. AWS introduced a service to embrace hybrid cloud a few years ago. Does anybody know what was the name of the service and which year it was introduced? Okay, I will answer. It's AWS Outpost. It was introduced in 2018. Probably it wasn't the case before that. Probably a hybrid cloud would have been a long-running thing, but looks like in late 2010s, it was realized that it's gonna live for a little longer. So we have a hybrid cloud environment and then a specific service, AWS Outpost, introduced by AWS in 2018. Introducing myself, my name is Vijay Soni. I am expert engineer at Discover, now part of Capital One. Today we are going to talk about the hybrid cloud challenges, and I will hand it over to Aman, my colleague, and to introduce himself and take it forward.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. Hi, everyone. My name is Aman Sardana. I'm the expert application architect at Discover, which is now part of Capital One Financial Services. So let's get started with the presentation today. Now, before we look at the challenges of hybrid cloud, I think it's first, let's take a look at what a business critical application could be. And we'll take an example from payments domain. It kind of like relates very well to all of us. So we all love shopping either online or we shop at retail stores. So what happens when you swipe your credit card? And it's an example of a critical system. It might look very simple, but there is a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. So as the customer swipes the credit card or makes an online payment, the merchant, they capture the payment information and they send to what we call as an acquirer. It's a bank that has a relationship with the merchant. The transaction is then sent to the payment network. Payment network could be Visa, MasterCard, Discover. There are international payment brands like China UnionPay, JCB in Japan. These payment network, they do a lot of pre-processing on the transaction before the transaction is sent to the issuing bank. Issuing bank makes the authorization decision and then the transaction is sent back to the merchant. Now, if the transaction has been authorized, the customer can walk away with the goods or the online checkout experience is completed. So this is a complex system. A lot of things happen behind the scenes. It's a critical system for any payment company. Now, specifically within Discover, we have a domestic network, which is a Discover network, and we have also international brand, which is Diners Club International, that enables Discover cardholders to be used internationally. As you can see, Discover Global Network Switch, which is the heart of the system, it's a two-sided platform. On one side, we have acquirers connected. On the other side, we have issuers connected. From the numbers perspective, we process 5 billion transactions annually. Our availability is 5 nines, which essentially means that we cannot go down for more than 5 minutes, 26 seconds in a year. We process hundreds and billions of worth of volume on a network, and the response time is typically less than 1 second. So when you swipe your credit card, you get a very quick response, and most of the time it works, right? I mean, that's the experience customer gets. And then there are like a lot of other examples within payment domain for the critical applications like open banking, batch processing, fraud monitoring, etc. Now, what's a hybrid cloud? I think we all know what a hybrid cloud is, but just a quick recap. It's a combination of where companies run on-prem infrastructure as well as cloud infrastructure. It could be either infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. On-prem resources, they play a very important role still because it provides a lot of stability in the environment and also helps the critical workload that has sensitive data to be run on-prem. Service orchestration tools also play an important role because of the variances in the on-prem and the cloud infrastructure. It provides a seamless way to integrate the hybrid cloud infrastructure. Now, some of the benefits of hybrid cloud. So hybrid cloud comes with a challenge, but it offers a lot of benefits, and that's the reason why companies are going with hybrid cloud. As you can see here, it provides a risk management approach. There is always a fallback option to come back to on-prem. Cloud journey is always very complex. I mean, companies, if they want to become a cloud native, they have to go through a journey. So they have to first start small, learn how to go cloud native, and gain maturity as they go through this process. And then finally, there's always this capacity burst that companies need, especially in payments domain, financial services. There could be a huge surge in the volume. So having that capacity burst helps with the hybrid cloud providers. Now, there are various scenarios for hybrid cloud hosting. So as you can see here, a company might be on-prem with non-containerized applications, could be mainframe, virtual machines, and they are looking, I mean, in this example, the company is looking at moving to a public cloud. Now, there are a lot of options for the company to, as they move into the public cloud, they can still run non-containerized. Essentially, they can do a lift and shift of their on-prem workload, or they can go with managed Kubernetes service like EKS. They can opt for self-managed Kubernetes service like OpenShift Rancher, or they might go with managed container service, either ECS, Fargate, etc. So a lot of options there as the company move from on-prem to public cloud. The other scenario here could be that the company has already matured on-prem. They already went through a journey where they moved away from the VMs and they are hosted on-prem on OpenShift, Rancher, or any other self-managed Kubernetes service. And then they are looking at moving to public cloud. Either could be managed Kubernetes service or self-managed Kubernetes service. So as you can see here, it's a very high-level overview of hybrid cloud scenarios, a lot of options, and that could lead into a lot of complexity. Now, I'll hand it over to Vijay. So before I hand it over, we'll kind of like take you through a journey of hybrid cloud. This is kind of like any hypothetical company, could be big enterprise, regulated industry, and this could be a multi-year journey, 4 or 5 years, and we'll probably cover that in like 2 or 3 minutes as to how that journey might look like. So come with us on this journey, and I'll hand it over to Vijay to start the journey, where Vijay would play a role of a product leader, and I'll be this infrastructure partner, and we'll take you through this journey of how the complexity is within the hybrid cloud.
Thanks, Aman. So let's get started. So for the basic understanding, so a company is running a business for a very long time, multiple decades, and has a corporate data center in the multiple physical locations and running the products working fine, highly available, everything looks good, but finds a reason to move to cloud, at least majority of the workloads, for the reason Aman mentioned before. Now, company has done some work to get the maturity towards the transition to the cloud, but still it's not fully ready to get to the cloud as a one-go approach. Rather, it wants to take the gradual approach so that it can learn from the iterations and then finally get to the cloud and then get to the maturity there and get all the benefits cloud offers to enterprise. So if you look on the left, example products like we have product A and product B. On the top left, we have a product running on the containers, and it has its own database, and it has kind of a low latency path. That's what we see in the experience when we say make a payment or do any other checkout related experience. Now at the bottom left, application can be running on the traditional VM because it's a kind of legacy application and it needs its own runtime and everything, and then it cannot move to cloud as is. So it remains side. It could be licensed software or the bespoke application. Now, company decides to move to cloud and chooses AWS to move and starts setting up the environment, and as initial setup, it does go over the VPN or internet to understand that how the traffic looks like, and then the transactions and then the integration, what are the benefits it can reap out of it. And it starts moving its workload. So if you see now, in a hybrid cloud environment, on the left, you have corporate data center. The traffic is being served so as from the applications deployed onto cloud environment on AWS, and now containers are running on both the environment. Now, here's the situation. Now, company observes the high latency on the cloud traffic, and there are some reasons it is looking to figure out. So I will let Aman describe those and see why that happened.
Yeah, so Vijay, who is my product partner, he reaches out to me and he starts complaining that we thought like we'll move to cloud and our journey will be very smooth and all the problems will be solved. I told him, well, not the case, my friend. Like, I mean, things are not that simple with public cloud. It doesn't work like seamlessly. I mean, we have to put a lot of effort to make things work. Cloud doesn't come for free. So as you can see here, when Vijay's group, they moved from on-prem to public cloud for various reasons like regional deployments and whatnot. As you can see here, initially the company wanted to go to market very fast. So they probably thought like, yeah, let's start with VPN. And with VPN, it worked fine, but with a lot of issues where high latency paths were introduced within the application, a lot of network congestion, variance in latency, and a lot of like security concerns as well. So then Vijay and I'm like had a conversation like, okay, so how can we resolve this issue with high latency? There's a general slowness in the environment. So now let's see what happened in the journey. Now, we brainstormed like what can be done in this scenario specifically. So we looked at the different options and thought like, okay, yeah, so what AWS offers. So AWS has AWS Direct Connect, which is basically MPLS connectivity. Now, it requires a lot of investment to have these direct connect established, where AWS has what they call as a AWS cage on a colo side. And typically, any big financial institution or any company would have a partner cage, and they will place their routers, firewall, and other networking gear to establish connectivity over MPLS. Typically, it's MPLS, but there are different options. But as you can see here, after this connectivity was established, the benefit was that there was a reduced latency, increased bandwidth, and also there were like additional options to enable like max security, for example. So at least at this point, we were able to fix some of the network latency issues that we have seen. I mean, entirely we didn't fix it entirely. I mean, we cannot get rid of network latency, but at least we alleviated some of the problems. So Vijay, why don't you take us to the next step now?
Yeah, so variable latency is now probably we have got the consistency over there. However, as we started moving more applications, we started seeing that aggregated latency going up. Now you see that there is still a connection to the database. Some of the sensitive data is still on-prem, and now we have a challenge to solve that. Now the difficult part is that we cannot move all the sensitive data as is to the cloud, so we have to find a way to solve that. So Aman, describe that what could be the way to solve those.
Yeah, so I think Vijay was happy that now our network latency issue is resolved, or at least we have improved upon the network latency. So as Vijay's group was moving more and more apps to the public cloud, so as you can see here, on-prem we had like low latency path. The same low latency path were established even in cloud, but of course then there were like few additional high latency paths that got introduced. And then Vijay's group reached out that now randomly we see like few customers are complaining that they see some slowness in the environment. It's not general slowness, but randomly some customers are complaining about that slowness. So as you can see here, the DNS is still on-prem, and any call between on-prem and cloud requires that DNS resolution that still goes on-prem. So that's still a high latency path. And we figured out that, okay, yeah, there are still a few things that are there in the environment that is causing issues for our customers. So now the journey continues. We keep on expanding and adding more components, but how do we resolve this issues like where we now have multiple clusters, on-prem, cloud infrastructure. So typically, there are some standard products, patterns that can help with such situations, like implementing service mesh like Istio or Istio gateway that enables a seamless service discovery between on-prem and public cloud. So as long as company has on-prem and cloud presence, we should look at some products that would help minimize the complexity that we get because of the hybrid nature of the cloud. So Vijay, why don't you summarize the final thoughts on where we landed?
So if you look at this setup, of course, it's not complete setup, but at least it gives an idea that the challenges we have in the hybrid cloud. And it's not just about moving the component from the corporate data center or owned by company to cloud, but also making a strategic decision for the long term to get the most benefit of the cloud. But at the same time, making sure that the company is compliant with the regulation, the data related limitations and all those. So with this, we kind of figured out that there are a lot more challenges than what we just described. So we'll go over all those challenges, and then we'll see that, how they look like, and we'll provide some recommendation around remediation. So in the hybrid cloud environment, we have figured out about 12 challenges. With the time limitation, we'll go about 8 in detail. Remaining 4 we'll just summarize, but if the time permits, we will cover remaining 4 as well. So the very first challenge in network complexity. So now you see that you have a hybrid cloud environment where the network team manages the cloud network as well as the on-prem network, and make sure that both the networks are managed well, introduces the complexity. Then you have the service discovery. Example was DNS lookup, and there are other reasons for the managing the service discovery well. So that becomes complex. Customized cluster management. So now if you are running the Kubernetes or other kind of cluster, then in that case, the cluster management between on-prem and the cloud becomes complex, and it needs customization. Next is continuous security overhead. Now, in the previous sessions, you saw about the VPC security, flow logs, and all those. So those are the inspection and all those related challenges do come for the security. Now, compliance requirement now in the regulated industry or otherwise where the compliance has the primary role, you got now new added compliance because of hosting some of the services or products in the cloud. Then you have the variable network latency. So we talked about the VPN, and there could be other reasons when the services need to go out on internet, and whether for DNS lookup or otherwise, may see the variable latency. Application integration. Not everything can be moved on the cloud as is, so requires the refactoring or sometimes whole rewrite of the application. So if you're on mainframe, probably cloud is not the right place. So you may need to rewrite the services and all those. So those are the things which we become challenging. Then increased DevOps efforts for the DevOps team to actually manage the DevOps environment in both cloud and on-prem. Complex DR process, high availability risks, monitoring tool and incrementing effort, and then finally the business cost. Of course, business cost goes up. Everybody knows with the hybrid cloud, but it's one of the factors which business already knows, but everything else we saw in the red is actually critical to manage well, to run the workload effectively. In the yellow is kind of fairly transparent, but it still can be managed well. The one business cost, I think everybody knows is gonna go up, so the way of turning green. Now, let's go a little bit deeper into the challenges. So what we have done is that the last 4 challenges, and I mentioned that we are going to cover first 8 in detail. So we have grouped into 4. So we'll provide details around first 4 challenges and then some remediation, and then we go with the next 4. So the first one is increased network complexity. What happens here? So hybrid networking now, both the on-prem and on-cloud network, now you have got the patch integration over there. Pod IP overlap, especially if you are using Kubernetes, which is the flat network kind of setup. So now you have to make sure that there is no IP conflict. So those are the things needs to be taken care of very well. Some organizations provide set up the kind of dedicated CIDR range at VPC level, or find another way to make sure that the hybrid environment has its own set of IP address so as the cloud, so there is no conflict. Now there are global routing limitations for the same reason that there is no global routing solution available to handle both cloud as well as the on-prem environment, and the net traversal issues for the performance. The next one is complex service discovery. So now if you are on the Kubernetes or on the AWS managed service, in those cases, if you have the cross-cluster communication between on-prem and on cloud, then seamless communication becomes difficult. DNS lookup latency, we talked about it, so I'm going to skip it. Caching issues may occur, if you have frequent IP rotation resulting into a stale DNS record, so that could be a problem. Then you have, if a service is going on internet for the DNS lookup, then it could cause a single find of failure. And finally, the load balancer integration can increase the performance latency. Customized cluster management is the third challenge we think is, and we will get into like operational complexity for the managing the cluster, and then lack of unified control plane would cause the fragmented management issues. Observability limitations. So especially for security team, or for the applications running on hybrid environment, you may have a difficulty to find the single view of the workloads running in both, and which means that it becomes challenging. Resource complexity, where we have the complex workload distribution. So now we have a different kind of mainframe VM running on, or the containers running onto the corporate data center, as well as on cloud you have running containers and VMs, so workload distribution becomes difficult and management around that. Finally, the inconsistent policies, those are like centralized control becomes difficult. The last one in the first group is continuous security overhead. So now multi-zone trust management, network security, internet exposure, secret management, network packet inspection, all those become very difficult because of back and forth between cloud as well as on-prem. But at the same time, the network security needs to make sure that there is no misconfiguration, which could cause that egress traffic to open where it was not supposed to, or otherwise. So those kind of challenges do have. So now I will hand it over to Aman to provide some remediation recommendation.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. So now let's take a look at the remediation for the first four set of challenges that Vijay went over. So the first one is network complexity. So now, assuming like either we are running containerized application or EKS or whatever it be, now some of the solutions that we can implement is software-defined WAN application solutions that helps like alleviate some of the concerns with networking between on-prem and cloud. Of course, as we looked at in the overall like solution, using cloud-native network services like AWS Transit Gateway definitely helps. Now, these remediations would help alleviate some of the concerns. I mean, sometimes we cannot fully eliminate, right? I mean, the challenges. Now, when we look at service discovery using service mesh solutions like Istio, as we looked at earlier, using cluster gateway for DNS discovery as well, I mean, would help. Or using overlay networking solution for cross-cluster connectivity. For the customized cluster management, using IAC tools like Terraform, Ansible, and a lot of like public cloud providers like Amazon, Google, etc. They provide a unified control plane. Even if it's not public cloud, platforms like Tanzu or Red Hat has its own unified control plane management solutions. For the security overhead, using federated authentication and encryption, standardizing on a common secret management tools like HashiCorp Vault, and having some automated configuration validation tools definitely helps. I think we are running short on time, so maybe we can. Do you want to just quickly skim through it? Yeah.
Okay. So I will quickly go over the rest four challenges and see if we can finish in a minute. So next challenge, added compliance requirements. So data related challenges like, if you have a compliance like GDPR in European Union and PCI DSS for the data security in payments, HIPAA for healthcare, and PSD2, which is Payment Services Directive, second version in European Union. So those become the, challenging to manage the data, and then localization requirement. So those kind of overhead do come. And then network latency we talked about. So you can't move the servers too close if unless you do that, you can't minimize the latency. And if the cloud is sitting in one physical location and the on-prem is far away, then you will see the network latency no matter what. And then quality of service rules may be affected because of the packet prioritization. The application integration constraints, legacy versus modern, we talked about the mainframe, etc. Dependency management, now every application needs its own library and version. So if you are managing on-prem and on cloud, then probably you may have those dependencies. Protocol differences, not every legacy protocol is supported probably on cloud. So that challenges does come, and then data synchronization due to lagging data replication, etc. Then increased DevOps effort, complex deployment pipeline because of the custom scripts requirement for, to manage both on-prem as well as the cloud environment together. Maintenance overhead, so environment-specific configuration might be needed. Infrastructure as a code limitation. Now duplicate build effort because of the two different build version you can call, and then application portability. So you can't just lift and shift from always from on-prem to cloud. So which means that you may have the application portability challenges. Aman, why don't you go over with the recommendation and we close from it?
Sure. So let's just quickly try to wrap up. So for the remaining challenges, for compliance, using anti-affinity rules to make sure that we place the workload at the right place helps. Kubernetes, for example, provides open policy agent so that we can have some admission controller to look at the resources being accessed in the environment. For network latency, using edge computing, direct connect, and if it's a Kubernetes, using Calico or Cilium for enabling quality of service rules. For the application integration, containerizing the application helps, and using event-driven architecture alleviates some of the issues that we see with hybrid cloud. For the DevOps, using templates and custom modules definitely helps, and using cross-platform tools like OpenShift and Rancher that standardize the way we perform DevOps on-prem and cloud would be helpful. For the last 4 set of challenges, we can quickly summarize how we can mitigate. For disaster recovery, using unified DR strategy tools like, for example, Velero. And I think the important point here is that it's not just about defining the DR strategy, but being able to actually execute and simulate the disaster recovery scenario is very helpful. And we have seen tools like Gremlin and Chaos Toolkit are really helpful to simulate some of these DR scenarios. For the high availability, using service mesh, using HPA, VPA, specifically if it's a Kubernetes environment, would help with dynamic scaling. For monitoring and control, we can have Datadog or unified telemetry that is provided by Istio or other service meshes. And for the business cost, it's more about keeping an eye on the business cost by using AWS Cost Explorer, or using auto-scaling capability, or rather we can even minimize the business cost by eliminating licensed products by focusing more on open source with containerization. So with that, we can summarize today's talk. So some of the key takeaways, infrastructure modernization is really important. Security and compliance a must-have for regulated industries like payments and financial services. And for residency and staffing, I think it's all about making sure that people, process, and technology, all three are taken into account when going with a hybrid cloud implementation. Thank you.
I think we extended a little bit of time, but thank you for your patience.